All right, everyone. We start off today with some humorous news, link in the description, archived, of course. Normally, when you say sources familiar with the matter, and then they report on what was said in a phone call or something like that, they have to speak on the condition of anonymity because they're not authorized to tell you jack shit, but just trust me, you dumb fuck. Normally, I don't believe those news stories. Most often, it seems to be sensationalistic nonsense, but this one, in my personal opinion, is entirely plausible. Supposedly, Trump comes out, and he likes to do this. He likes to get ahead of anyone else's reactions to proposals by sort of forcing them into a situation where they have to straddle the line between accepting the proposal, at least tacitly, or rejecting it and then angering him, and then he can thunder at them for a while. This is what he did to Netanyahu. He came out ahead of Netanyahu saying anything to the world with regards to the potential brokered peace agreement with the release of hostages by Hamas and so forth. And he said, well, yeah, the Israelis really like the idea and Hamas is on board and everything's fine, hunky-dory, basically. Netanyahu, meanwhile, has more reservations than that. Very quickly came out and said, well, there are still things to hammer out. When the hostages are released, then we can negotiate further. And then apparently talk to Donald Trump on the phone, right? And he said, well, I'm not really happy with every element of this deal. And apparently Trump told him, you're always so fucking negative. Just take it. It's a victory. That's hysterical. Under normal circumstances, again, I don't believe unsourced, attributed quotes from Trump or anyone else. It doesn't matter, by the way, what their political affiliation is, what country they're from. None of that matters. You get a lot of this within the legacy media's plethora of tripe, so to speak. But this one is totally believable. This is exactly how I think that Trump would react in such a situation. You're always so fucking negative. Can you imagine how fucking funny that'd be? Oh, to have a recording of this particular call, and it probably does exist. This one is believable. It's plausible because it's sort of the way that Trump tends to act. Man, that would be so funny. That would be the quote that launched 1,000 memes. Well, more than 1,000, I'm sure. It's believable, and this is how you need to deal with diplomacy sometimes. You say like, suck it up, dude. You're getting your hostages back. This was one of your main pledges to the Israeli people, especially to the grieving families that are still there. They're waiting for, in some cases, the charnel remains of their loved ones. And in most cases, hopefully survivors. I mean, they've been probably brutally tortured this entire time, but we'll see. That was one of the main pledges that Netanyahu made. If the hostages are released and negotiations continue and things calm down, that's already more than one small step towards, getting the peace process done. Again, as someone, I'm not Team Palestine, I'm not Team Israel. I don't have skin in the game because it's not even my continent. But if you're going to throw your diplomatic weight behind trying to stop a major conflict, tens of thousands of people have been killed. Civilians, soldiers, Hamas members, everyone under the sun. Tens of thousands of people have been splattered already. I think, didn't they say the death toll had approached 60,000 or something like that in the Gaza Strip? That's a substantial chunk of the population. I mean, that's like 3 Rutlands. So that's a lot of death. It's a lot of people to bury in a relatively small geographic area, by the way. Helpfully, a lot of them are already buried in rubble anyway, so I suppose you just leave it there as a monument or something like that. But this actually happens. There are still monuments like that in Afghanistan after the war against the Soviets over there in the early 1980s. Tanks stacked up one on top of each other as sort of like little obelisks and shit like that. Apparently, this is decorative to some people. I don't know. I'm more into Art Nouveau and stuff like that. I like a little nature as opposed to piles of burned out tanks, but that's just me. And Trump is telling Netanyahu not to be negative. This, by the way, marks the first time that we've had a president of the United States who was serious about applying pressure to Israel. For all of the Zion Dawn memes and all that bullshit, because, oh my God, Trump hasn't nuked Jerusalem yet. Clearly he's the enemy. Give him credit where credit's due. We've had 2 other presidents in modern history that have even tacitly criticized the Israeli administration in even the most mundane and mild of ways. Barack Obama, who said, well, I think you need to calm down, and didn't do anything about it. And then Biden, who said, well, come on, man, you got to play nice. and didn't do anything about it. In fact, it was his mismanagement that led to Hamas having the ability to stage such an incursion in the first place. So they don't really count because they never did anything about the situation. Trump took the fore, is doing something about the situation, is attempting to prevent further calamity within that region on either side, and people will still castigate him for it. Well, you make war? Well, then you've sold out, oh my God, globalist interests. You don't want to make war? You want to stop a war from happening? Oh my God, well, you're just a sellout. You're an evil person. The left will go after him for not giving more aid to the Palestinians, and the neocons will go after him for criticizing Israel. Their sacred cow, because most of them are dual citizens, I've noticed. So they have a real big problem with the situation, and Trump walks that thankless tightrope too, because he's got to try to hammer things out while literally everyone is bitching at him without even really knowing more broadly the situation. Like most of the people complaining about Trump's efforts. They don't know anything about foreign diplomacy. They don't know anything about the history of the region. They just don't know. They're just completely ignorant. They've never cracked open, I guess, a couple of anthropological works or anything like that. This was exactly what led me to understand why Biden's movement of the withdrawal date in Afghanistan would pan out so poorly. To anyone who understood anything about the culture and the civics over there in Afghanistan, they had to have known, if they had any wisdom at all, that it would be a bad idea. It's basically the equivalent of making a deal with someone and then saying, "Oh yeah, well, I'll get to it later. Yeah, I know I was going to offer you $50 for this object here, but I can only do 30. I'm really sorry about that." Doesn't fly in certain parts of the world. The same thing is true in Palestine and Israel. That's why you have to hammer out a long-term formal agreement. But you have to get the hostages first. Netanyahu's made that clear. Hamas has been apparently, generally speaking, willing to do so. And so that hopefully that jumpstarts the process towards more peace. Neocons don't want it because neocons don't like peace. They love war. They make a lot of money off of it. And the left doesn't want peace because they want Israel eradicated and they want basically a free Palestine sort of stuff. So he's got that thankless job. But to say to Netanyahu to his face, "You're always so fucking negative." Just fucking calm down, dude. That's pretty ballsy, and it's really, really funny too. And in this particular instance, I'm going to hope that this is true, and I find it to be at the very least plausible. Seems exactly like the sort of thing that Trump would say when somebody tries to countermand him when he's already made a public speech on the subject. That's about all. Peace out.